Good morning. I'm McComb, the Dean of SUNY Buffalo Law School, the state's law school. Let me thank and warmly welcome the Governor of the State of New York, Governor Andrew Cuomo, for once again choosing SUNY Buffalo Law School for this historic event. I would like to acknowledge Dr. Satish Tripathi, the President of the University at Buffalo, who is with us today as Dr. Tripathi. I'd like to acknowledge SUNY Board Trustee Eunice Lewin. Eunice. UBF President Francis Litro. Francis. And to thank all the community leaders and members of the UB community who have joined us this morning. Thank you, Governor, for inviting me to speak once again today. I was very honored when the Governor asked me to serve on the commission to investigate public corruption. And I also want to congratulate Erie County DA, Frank Sedita, who will also be serving alongside me on the commission. The state owes its citizens the respect and the trust that they deserve. By creating this commission to investigate public corruption, which is independent, the Governor has created a commission full of top law enforcement officials from New York, and we expect that the commission will bring us a step closer towards restoring the public trust. Recent events in this state have shown us that corruption continues to permeate our political culture. What we are seeking to do with this commission is to change the flaws in the system and discover the root of the problem so that those problems can be addressed. We believe that in order for the state of New York to function and be successful, the government must have the trust of the people. That is why the Governor has taken this historic step to tackle corruption in the state head-on. Our students in this university and students elsewhere in the state who aspire to be public servants must not be embarrassed by elected public officials. They should be able to have the trust and the respect of their government. This commission is going to have the powers to investigate all levels of government to ensure that future leaders who are sitting here among us today will not be handed a state fraught with corruption and scandal. I want to commend you, Governor Cuomo, for taking these bold steps to restore public trust in our government. I am sure that the commission will be successful. It is now my pleasure to introduce my fellow commissioner, Erie County DA, Frank Sedita. Frank.
Good morning. After several years as this state's chief law enforcement official, and the last 2.5 years as this state's chief executive officer, I think a reputation has been established, and I'm fairly certain that a message has been sent. The governor, in the words of my teenage son, is a serious dude. 3 weeks ago, I had the honor of introducing Governor Cuomo in this very room when he announced the importance of passing the Public Trust Act, a series of legislative proposals designed as a first step to address public corruption in our state. The governor also made it crystal clear that day that the proposed legislation was not enacted. He fully intended to convene the Moreland Commission to investigate public corruption. Guess what happened? Guess why we're here today? The governor, ladies and gentlemen, is a serious dude. When I was here 3 weeks ago, I also said the following: most public officials are earnest, hardworking, and have the best interests of their constituents in mind. Unfortunately, the unethical, and sometimes unlawful conduct of some politicians and their cronies taints the reputation of honest public servants and undermines public confidence in our government. What exacerbates this problem is the inability or the unwillingness of some folks, even in state government, to do their job. For example, the State Board of Elections is charged with the duty to investigate violations of the elections law and make referrals to District Attorney's Office if the investigation uncovers sufficient evidence to justify a criminal prosecution. In reality, the State Board of Elections rarely, if ever, conducts meaningful investigations. Our governor is saying enough is enough. Public corruption won't be tolerated in New York. As one of the strongest anti-corruption initiatives in recent history, the Moreland Commission to investigate public corruption is exactly the kind of aggressive response that is needed in this state. The Moreland Commission will enable us to finally hold our elected officials accountable, hold state agencies accountable, and guarantee government in New York represents and works for the people of the state of New York, which also happens to be my client. Because he has been a steadfast advocate for restoring the public's trust in government, it has been a pleasure to work with the governor and the governor's team. It is also an honor to be selected as a member of the commission, especially considering the distinguished accomplishments and the high moral and ethical character of its other members. Thank you, Governor. It is now my honor to introduce the governor of the great state of New York, Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, to be introduced by the district attorney as a serious dude. I'll take it. I've been called worse, much worse. To District Attorney Frank Sedita and to Dean McComb, I first want to begin by truly thanking them for taking on this obligation and this task. It's not going to be easy. They have a very busy day job, and now they're taking on a very difficult assignment, but I believe it's going to have a profound effect for the state, and we couldn't find two better people to do it. Let's give them a round of applause. Dr. Satish Tripathi said to me, if I come back one more time in the next month, he's going to charge me tuition. Thank you for having me once again, and don't charge me tuition. Dr. Tripathi, thank you for your leadership. Dr. Tripathi, as you know, also is the co-chair of our Regional Economic Development Council, which is doing extraordinary work here. So he's been very, very helpful to us on many, many levels. As you heard from the district attorney and the dean, we're here to talk about the Moreland Commission, hence the law school. Moreland Commission is an important act, 1907. Gives the governor of the state of New York an ability to set up an independent investigations commission to investigate executive functions of executive agencies. That's the legal rationale for what we are doing and the reason for being in law school. But it's actually simpler than that in many ways. It's about trust, and it's about people's trust of government. And any relationship is only as good as the level of trust. I don't care what the relationship is. I don't care if it's husband and wife. I don't care if it's a friendship. The strength of the relationship is equal to the dimension and the depth of trust. And the citizens' trust in this state government has been shaken for good reason. First, they start with a healthy cynicism towards government and politicians and politics, which is built up over many, many years. And there's been many situations and scandals and situations where government is disappointed and government was unethical. So they start with a cynicism. And then we went through a period of about 4 or 5 months recently, where almost every week they picked up a newspaper and they saw another legislator getting into trouble, charged with wrongdoing and indictments, some really terrible things. Legislators accused of sexual harassment of staff members, young people who went to the state capitol to serve as interns being sexually harassed, on illegal acts, unethical acts, and literally a whole string week after week after week. And you can feel it all across the state, but people just now look towards Albany and they're not sure who that government represents, if they want to have an association with that government, and their trust is shaken for good reason. We want to restore the trust. Why? Because I want that relationship intact. So how do we do it? I first proposed a comprehensive set of laws that would reform the system from beginning to end. We put forth a Clean Up Albany package to the legislature that changed the way we finance campaigns, reduced the contribution limits, took the money out of politics, a public financing system, new ethical guidelines, new laws to make it easier to prosecute politicians who actually did the wrong thing and broke the law, an entire reform package. And the legislature did not act on the package. Now, full disclosure, the legislature will say that I was unwilling to compromise on the package. And usually the legislative process has compromise to get something done. I plead guilty to that offense. I was unwilling to compromise this piece of legislation. Not that I'm unwilling to compromise as a general rule, even though my daughters would say I am somewhat uncompromising, but they're biased. On this one, I was unwilling to compromise. Why? Because I was not going to compromise the Clean Up Albany legislation. Because if we had compromised it and watered it down, then it wouldn't have had the purpose and the effect anyway, because people wouldn't have believed that that was a new system that was actually going to change. So I was unwilling to compromise. And I said to the legislature right up front, as you heard from the district attorney, there's option A and option B, right? Life is options. Option A is you pass the Clean Up Albany legislation. If you don't pass the Clean Up Albany legislation, option B is I'm going to appoint a Moreland Commission, 1907, legal ability, and they're going to clean up Albany. So either you can do it with the legislation or they can do it through a Moreland Commission. Legislature didn't act, I didn't compromise, and we are setting up a Moreland Commission. I don't think people expect that their government is going to be perfect. I don't believe that they think politicians are perfect people. They know there are no perfect people. This is humanity, and we are fatally flawed creatures, and we make mistakes, and we ask for forgiveness. So they get that. But they want to know that if people do the wrong thing, people are punished, and people want to know that there's a system in place that is effective at finding people who did the wrong thing. And they are right, and they need to know that. And we need that actually done and instituted in Albany. So, what do? What is the best I can do as governor? The best I can do as governor is to say to the people of the state, look, I tried to pass the legislation, they wouldn't pass it. I'm going to invoke the ultimate power I have, which is the Moreland Commission, and I'm going to put together a group of the best and brightest law enforcement officials you have ever seen assembled, period, in the state of New York. Just the best and the brightest, the Blue Ribbon Commission, the All-Stars, a roster of who's who in the law enforcement community, statewide, and let them go and do the job. And say to them, you have broader jurisdiction than any other commission has had. You can't have any broader jurisdiction. They're deputized by the Attorney General of the state. So they're now deputy attorney generals, which give them full subpoena power. So it's a gubernatorial commission with the subpoena power of the attorney general, and the best and the brightest talent ever put together and say to them, go to it. To the extent there is wrongdoing and people have done the wrong thing, find it and prosecute it. To the extent we have to change the system because there are loopholes or there should be reforms, tell us what the reforms are. That is the best I can do. That would be the ideal solution. And that is exactly what we are doing. This is a Moreland Commission with subpoena power, with the best and the brightest statewide. And that's what District Attorney Sedita and Dean McComb are signing on to today. I believe this commission, there has never been a commission assembled like this one before. I've studied all the past groups. I've studied all the past efforts. You've never had a group with this talent and with this power. And I believe it's going to go a long way towards making the people of this state feel rightfully that they have a government that they can trust. If this government has something to hide, this group of people is going to find it, and they're going to expose it. And that's what this is all about. If there are reforms that we have to make, this group of people are going to tell us exactly what it is. Now, let me tell you as a last point what this is not. Well, maybe the governor's doing this because he thinks all politicians are crooks. No. Actually, the exact opposite. I work with the members of the legislature. I know many of them personally. These are overwhelmingly good people who go into public service for the right reasons, who work very hard and do the right thing. And I believe this is really about the proverbial bad apple spoiling the bunch. And everyone is now getting painted with a broad brush, and everyone is tarnished by the bad acts of a few. And I respect the legislature as a group, and they have done good work. We have produced for the people of this state. Well, maybe because the governor thinks the government is bad, and the government is corrupt, and the government is negative. No, actually the exact opposite. I have tremendous respect for the institution of state government. And I have tremendous belief in the state government and what the state government can do. I've seen what a good government can do. I want to restore the trust because I want to increase the ability and the capacity of government, because the distrust is the limiter. If you had more trust, you'd have more capacity. And I believe inherently in the capacity of government. And I believe we have demonstrated it. Look at the difference we've made in the past 2 years, because for many years we didn't have a functioning state government. And just look at the past 2 years and look at the difference that that state government can make in people's lives. Passing the budgets on time, turning the economy around. Look at what we've done in Buffalo. Look at Peace Bridge. Look at UB 2020. Look at what the Economic Development Council is doing. Look at the cranes in the sky that are actually building once again in Buffalo. You can do great, great things. Government is not the enemy. You know, government, we talk about government like it's an alien being. The government, the government, the government. No, the government is us. The government is just when individuals can't complete a task as an individual, you appoint a committee. And the committee is what we call government. And we appoint people to the committee. And we want that committee to succeed, because if that committee succeeds, we succeed. And if the committee doesn't succeed, we don't succeed. And if you don't believe in that theory of organization, then you're limiting us and you're condemning us. And I don't believe that. I believe this state has the best collection of assets, the best workforce, the best history, the best healthcare institutions, the best educational institutions. I believe our future is limitless when we come together and when we work effectively. And that's what government is. And I want every person in this state to have that same confidence in government that I have. And I believe this commission is the vehicle to do that, to restore the trust by telling the truth. It always works. And that's exactly what this commission will do. I thank the district attorney and I thank the dean for taking on this responsibility. Thank you for having me.